Hello ladies and gentlemen, Gabesty here. This is the Heroic Quick Raid Guide for Norushen, the third boss in Siege of Orgrimmar. And feel free to click at the bottom there to check out the full raid guide or any other role-specific guides for this boss. So you may have heard about this if you follow the Blizzard, blue posts or WoW news or anything like that. But effectively, this fight on Heroic is the normal version of the encounter, just with higher numbers. Some changes were made after the first raid week, and it is mechanically identical to the normal version as far as we can tell, with one very minor change, which we'll briefly talk about. But for the most part, this fight is the normal version. So if you know the mechanics for normal, which I'm going to assume you do if you're watching a Heroic guide, then that's it. You can do this fight. Mechanically, it's exactly the same. It's just there's more damage to the raid. You have to do more damage as your DPS, heal more, all that stuff. But otherwise, it's the exact same. So this quick guide is going to be especially quick for that reason. So probably the most important thing for Heroic, since mechanically it's the same as normal, is determining your priority or rotation for players that are going in the trial phases. Now on Heroic, the only change really is that you get access to 5 orbs at once rather than 2 that you're limited to in normal. So you can simply send in pretty much as many players as you'd like at one time. Now this is significant because the DPS requirement is moderately high on this fight. You need to meet a 7-minute Berserk timer, which is hard Berserk. So you'll pretty much be one shot once that hits. So once you figured out your raid composition, you need to focus everything you can on pushing your DPS through those trials as quickly as possible so that you can get them down to 0 corruption and they can remain at that level throughout the rest of the fight so they can do full damage to the boss. So order your DPS and your healers and your tanks and all that to go through the trials somewhat with that notion in mind. The earlier you can get DPS players to go in, the better it's going to be. So basically we did 2 DPS up front, then we did a healer and a DPS, then a healer and DPS, finished all our damage players, and then our tanks were at the end. And this way the tanks can kind of reset when they need to, or they can just get a full 4 stack, and after they've reset, they can just grab the final 5 spawns that appear at 50% and below, and we don't have to push anyone else through the trial at that point. So get your DPS in early, get them to stay out or not get any corruption after that, and everyone should be able to do max DPS from then. Now, the other thing to briefly mention is that there's a bug in this fight as of the time of this recording where Unleashed Anger, which is used on the tank by the boss pretty frequently, is often targeting non-tank players. Specifically, this usually tends to be pets and melee DPS. It seems to be somewhat related to the distance from the boss's center. Even if you're in melee range, it doesn't always hit the tank. So the best thing we found is try to just keep tanks close as possible and other melee type players at max melee distance. But otherwise, just be aware that that's going to sometimes hit random players. So you have to keep people topped off in health in case that happens. But that's it. This fight, as I says, this guide is not even really a guide because it's just, I should just link to the normal version and say, yeah, do that. There's just higher numbers because literally they changed the fight after the first raid week and that's it. So yeah, I'm sorry this is so lame, but nothing I can really say unless you just want me to list all the normal abilities, and there's plenty of guides for that. Okay, so that's the quick raid guide for Heroic Norushen. As always, good luck, and thanks for watching.